Hi, I'm Teresa Norton, and this is The View from Abroad, where each week I pull out one of the newspaper columns I wrote between 1993 and 2000 when I was in my late 30s and living in Hong Kong. And in looking back over the 300-something columns, it's clear to me that I had some pretty strong opinions about an awful lot of them. A lot of different topics. I talked about everything from the importance of politics and parenting. I talked about white lies and public libation. Each week I start off by reading one of those columns, and then I chat with my guest about how and why our perspectives have or have not changed. And this week I'm going to be chatting with Alan Couldrey, who's a friend and creative writer and yogi, and who also lived in Hong Kong during the time when the columns were written. Before we talk with Alan, we're going to begin, as we always do, with one of those columns I wrote nearly 30 years ago. Keep that in mind. This one could have been found in the South China Morning Post one Saturday morning sometime between 1994 and 1996, I'd say. Charity that takes the cake. I don't know. Maybe I'm nuts, but the recent front page photo of a little old lady and a little much older lady cutting into a cream cake put a chill down my spine. You see, legislator LC2 and 100-year-old Ms. Ko Chung were slicing into that strawberry-laden confection in preparation for a charity fast for the aged. According to the caption, Ms. Ko was packing in the food ahead of April 15th's 8-hour elderly famine. The event hopes to raise money for underprivileged mainland girls. Huh? Well, if not raise money, then at least make a bit more room for them? Who comes up with these mind-boggling campaigns? Become with me a fly on the wall of the conference room on the 42nd floor of the ever-so-wealthy building in Central, where the biannual meeting of the Money for Underprivileged Mainland Girls Charity Committee is about to begin. Okay, meeting of the MUPMUG Charity Drive. Please come to order. Yes, Miss Wong. Mr. Chairman, I think our priority should be to come up with more catchy name than MUPMUG. It just sounds like we're burping. Can't we call ourselves Sweetie or Happy? That is much more positive and cheerful. But, Miss Wong, none of those letters match with Money for Underprivileged Mainland Girls. Oh, mutters Miss Wong sheepishly. On to the next item of business. Our public image needs more publicity and a better image. Any suggestions? Yes, Ms. Leung. What if we make a television commercial showing a happy little kitty cat or some other positive image with a good song to go with it? Perhaps we can get Aaron or Leon to sing it. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, interrupts the hired consultant, Ms. Chan. What does a cat and a pop song sung by a fellow have to do with underprivileged girls? Good point, Miss Chan. Go on. I think we should let Hong Kong women show their solidarity with China's women of tomorrow, but not with male pop stars or cartoon characters, but with real women, women with history and dignity. Oh, like Dudu and Fei-Fei? No, Ms. Wong, snaps Ms. Chan. Not television personalities, real Hong Kong women. The nameless, faceless thousands who nurtured and toiled to make a life for themselves and their daughters and granddaughters. Elderly women who sacrificed and survived. The consultant outlines a devastatingly brilliant campaign to raise much-needed funds, the icing on the cake being increased awareness of the enormous contributions simple women have made to Hong Kong society. Having become rather emotional during her presentation, she excuses herself from the meeting after pointing out that underprivileged is one word and thus their acronym is incorrect. Oh, Miss Chan has a very strong idea. Now we must find the best way to implement it. Was anybody taking notes when she was talking? Mr. Chairman, I remember most of it, cries Miss Leung. Miss Chan said that we needed to get old women who made something society, who made contributions to a secret society, names for themselves in the society pages. Anyway, we need these women, and we make them sacrifice and survive for charity. Well done, Ms. Leung. Did she mention how we're supposed to publicize this? Oh, yes, indeed she did, cries Miss Leung.
pleased as Punch to be the only one in the conference room to have understood the dazzling campaign. We give them cake with sweet and happy icing. And so we get a glimpse behind the scenes of yet another Hong Kong charity committee run amok. I don't know how many of those old birds will make it through 8 hours of elderly famine, but at least they got their cake, and Elsie too.
Hi, Alan.
Hi,
Welcome.
Teresa. She's good, isn't she, that Teresa Norton? I like the way
I'm
she
rather
reads.
fond of her.
Yeah. She could do that professionally, you know.
I guess my point in that column, you know, reading it again all these years later, it was something akin to a poster that I saw in more than one creative director's office at an ad agency. And it was a poster of a horse designed by committee, and it always showed a camel. I mean, you've seen that one, I'm sure.
You've gone
right?
straight in on the creative director attack, right?
Well, you were a creative director.
I was, yes. And we had that poster or something very similar. Yeah. Yes, I know that poster, designed by a committee.
Right. And I mean, I guess that is actually, if I'm looking back on this and going, what's still relevant to me, or why did I write that? I think part of it was that I'm just not very good at working on committees, because I think I'm that consultant, Miss Chan. I'm the one who comes in and says, you know, listen, I've got the right idea. I loved the fact that she got emotional.
Yes, but Teresa, I know you well enough you would never have walked out. That's the only point of difference. But otherwise, no, it's very familiar. Years ago, a colleague of mine was telling me when he worked in the States, he presented some creative work, and the person who was responsible for the marketing looked at the boss and then looked at the agency and then looked back and then burst into tears and did run out of the room. And when asked why, replied, "I couldn't find anything wrong with it."
Oh.
And that's like the other end of it. That's the other extreme, right? So you go from committee to when you're down to one person, you know, just bringing their inherent negativity to the game. So
right.
Yeah. So committees at one end and difficult people at the other, maybe.
Yeah. And I mean, look, another element of that piece, I look at it all these years later, you know, people who are not from Hong Kong in that era might not know that Elsie Elliott, too, was a legislative counselor. She was a very passionate activist, very pro-Beijing. And she, you know, she was old when I wrote this. Yeah. She's now deceased.
Yeah, but she got on until 102. So, yeah, the cake didn't do her any harm.
Well, my point in this, though, was the idea of having these two old people. It was the idea that they were going to go on a fast. And that line about, let me just read this little paragraph here, that according to the caption, Ms. Ko was packing in the food ahead of an 8-hour fast to raise money for underprivileged mainland girls. Well, if not raise money, then make a bit more room for them. That's a little... You know, I don't know.
I think you would probably be okay. You didn't sort of go the next step, which would be to make some comment about, you know, physical dimensions or anybody.
No.
I noticed you mentioned Fei Fei in the article, who's also no longer with us, the poor woman. But what was she called? Lydia Shum. Right?
She was well proportioned.
Yeah, and Fei Fei, meaning fat, would be a difficult. But it's the name she used, but. That might now present a problem, but I guess that was her choice at the time. It made her famous.
She made her very famous. Well, you know, that's the thing. I mean, part of what makes this whole process interesting to me, looking back over these columns, is my increasing sensitivity to not offending people when clearly, well, you knew me in my younger years. I didn't give a crap if anybody was offended.
No, and... Yeah,
if it was funny, I printed it.
Maybe that's not such a bad thing, though. I mean, everybody has become super sensitive. And there's the suggestion, isn't there, that people actually have a right to be offended, but being offended doesn't necessarily mean that things should change, right?
Yeah, it's tough, because I have some columns that I wrote at that time that are specifically about the fact that there were things that were offensive to me that were going on in the press, or one of them was about a suggestion. I was working at a radio station, and the program director was suggesting that we do something that felt hugely inappropriate to me. So I clearly, kind of went back and forth on the thing of what felt inappropriate to me. And that, I guess, is what is being challenged right now in the world, is that just because it doesn't feel inappropriate to you doesn't mean that it's not making somebody else uncomfortable. And that's what the consideration is. And I think the pendulum is swinging very far in one direction, and it's probably important that it does at this point in time. But I personally hope that it swings somewhere back down in the middle there, so that we can, have a bit of a laugh about some things that feel like we're not allowed to laugh about them anymore.
I know. And this is where it depends who you are, what you say now.
Yes.
The two things are so directly connected. I agree. And there are topics that I think are quite funny. And it seems to me that to squeeze the humor out of them all is a great shame. But then that maybe doesn't, I am who I am. Things that affect me do affect me or don't affect me. It doesn't mean necessarily that somebody who's much more directly involved, much more sort of touched by a topic, maybe they said, well, actually, it's not funny to me. It's life, right?
Right.
Yes, I know. But that's always been the case, right? Everybody, you only have to watch one of these stand-up comedians on Netflix or something, and you think, yeah, the audience must self-select. If you're going to watch Jimmy Carr or somebody, it's like he goes at it full on, and you sometimes even sort of tests the audience. Anybody going to leave if I say this? And then he sort of tests the waters. It's quite a dangerous game to play.
It is, and I think it's different now because, well, so many things are different now, but also the power of this instantaneous sharing of over a phone camera of anything that's said, and some things are, taken out of context of the larger message sometimes.
But to go back to the column,
please. Yes.
I had a couple of questions.
Back to me. Yeah.
Back to that's enough about me. What do you think of me? No, the couple of questions is where did you start? Did you think icing on the cake could be misinterpreted, and therefore that's a funny way to build the structure of the article, or did you go even more? And I'm not in any way demeaning the creative spirit here, but the last line's brilliant, right? You can have your cake and Elsie too, right? That's very clever. Is that where you started?
No, it wasn't. Honestly, what I loved writing for theater, and the fun of this script for me was writing a sketch.
Right.
Right. So a lot of it, that was the whole thing, was like, if I were a fly on the wall, what would the sketch be? What would the characters be like in this?
Yeah.
We'd have this one very earnest gal who pops up with all kinds of ideas that are half baked or quarter baked, and that you'd have to have this chairperson, and then there has to be this voice of reason, this frustrated person who's sitting there listening to all this blather. So that was really where it was. And those kinds of puns, I'm sorry to say, those run through my empty little head.
No, it's all right. You're talking to a converted.
Yes, I'm preaching to the
I'm
choir
the same.
here.
Yes,
right?
you are.
I just, this is one of those things where I have to be careful not to interrupt something that's important because a pun has come into my head that I think would be really good to slide in there.
Are you suggesting we ought not to interrupt something that's important just because a pun's occurred to us? I wish you'd told me that 20, 30 years ago. I've based my career on doing that. I mean, I was on a call, this branding company I work with, and we do a Zoom call once a week or something, Google Meets or something. And one of the guys on the call, quite important, was going to go and have a meeting in Cambridge. and he was presenting some good ideas. And so I was like, oh God, can you see where that's going? So Cambridge, I said, well, look, see if they'll take a punt on it. Because exactly. And that would have been a milder reaction. I think they were quite cross. I think they were quite put out that I just couldn't resist it.
Yes,
Years ago, I was with some friends in Kowloon Tong, people you know, actually. And I was about to go home after a very nice dinner, and it was raining very, very heavily. Very heavily. I thought, I'll just stay. And they said, well, look, we've got a bottle of fortified wine. Why don't you have a glass of that? I thought that'd be lovely. Yeah, I don't mind having one fortified wine. And then we're not sure it's very special. I said, that's all right. Any port in a storm. And it's like a little Portuguese joke for you. But it's like, it's not that the humor is particularly good. It's the situation arose.
It just sets
do you know what
you
I mean?
up. What did you say?
Yes.
Now listen, the gong has been struck.
Yes.
The hook's coming out to drag you off the stage for this last lousy pun, and it's time for a commercial break.
Right. Okay.
And I know that you are a talented writer, a humorous writer, a serious writer, a poet. Let's talk about that a little bit, and also about how you work with creative teams. We've got like a couple of minutes here to explore this.
Okay.
So
well, thank you for that lovely introduction. And I'd like to claim all those things. I even on my LinkedIn at one point, I put millennial poet because I decided, well, I can be a millennial. You know, it's ageist if you say I'm not a millennial. Because I'm living through it. I mainly write sort of poetry and things for my own benefit. I did a writing course with Falmouth U, which was fantastic, comedy writing. Years ago, I did an Edinburgh course, a master's in dramatic writing. So I've written some things. I've got scripts written that I would love to see produced. A couple of them have been done in amateur production. And then my professional career was all in ad agencies and branding. So naming, which is the top end of silliness when it comes to creativity, because you spend so much time going, oh my God, let's, is it going to be called this? Is it going to be called that? And then, Amazon, which is quite a good name. I heard Jeff Bezos talking about how they selected it, and it's like, okay, that's a great name. I mean, we now all use it all the time.
All the
Google,
time. Yeah.
So that end of things, I still work with creative teams in terms of trying to balance structure and form, deadlines, and what the client's looking for with genuine creativity. And it's quite a difficult, as you know, it's a difficult balance. The same balance that journalists manage somehow. They're creative, but they've got to get it in by 4 p.m. or 6 p.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's the area I've explored, and I'm still doing some with this company in London. It's called Saboteur Studio, which is a very nice branding company set up by friends. I still do some stuff with them.
If people wanted to get in touch with you and get some help from you on either because they had a creative team that they'd like you to come in and help give them some direction, or if they wanted you to help them with some writing, what would be the best way to reach you?
Would be through Saboteur. So saboteur.studio is their website. And then I'm alan.c@saboteur.studio.
A quick thank you to my dear, dear friend Walter Jebby, wonderful blues guitarist who did that little jingle for me.
It's a funky little tune, isn't
great,
it? It's catchy.
Isn't it? Right. And Charles Teo, I don't know if you know Charles. He's does music production, and he does a little course online for music production. And Charles mixed the whole piece together and put a little drum beat under it. So there we go. So we are back, and now the big question is, reading that column, what idea or word spawned a memory for you of a true story of something where you learned, I don't know, some kind of lesson?
Well, I mean, now, here we go, treading boldly, okay? A couple of the things that have come back to me because of your revisiting this article are to do with misinterpretation of English. And in the ad agency I work for in Hong Kong, and they're funny, and then they're slightly poignant, right? So I had a boss when I was a junior creative, my creative director boss, and he was quite a strong character, as many of these people were. British, very tall. The Cantonese used to name for him used to be Arms and Legs, because he was sort of all arms and legs. Anyway, we won't say who it was. Well, perhaps we should. No, we won't say who it was. But anyway, he wanted to have an illustration drawn, and this is before the days of the internet, right? So illustration for this brilliant idea. And he came in and they had drawn this fantastic bird, like a sort of brightly colored bird on a branch. And he said, "No, I said carrot and stick."
Oh,
and they'd spent, hours doing this beautiful parrot, and which, if you think of it, is much more logical, right?
Yes.
And he was like, "Oh no, the meeting's in 10 minutes. I want a carrot and a stick." I mean, if you're cultural, and then another example, and this is true. It sounds untrue. In a meeting with a warm-up session with a group of creative people visiting. Sort of professor of creativity, wasn't me, said to somebody, "Could you draw the curtains?"
And somebody drew pictures of curtains.
And they drew the curtains.
Oh,
well, because
that's wonderful.
Because you would, right?
I
because
would.
You would, especially if it's not your first language. And finally,
I do it anyway. Just because I thought
well,
it
maybe
was
that
funny.
was the point. Yeah. Well, and then when I worked in Indonesia for many years. And when I first got to Indonesia, I asked if I could have a copy of the newspaper. Just give me a copy of the newspaper. And my PA said, "What, all of it?"
We know where this is going. You don't even have to finish that. That's
no,
beautiful.
Thank you.
I'm seeing
and it's
somebody laying that paper over a
photocopy
photocopy machine.
She was gone for, like 40 minutes. And I mean, but the thing is, it's poignant, right? It is funny. But
it's wonderful. It's
but
great.
It's painful.
And it's that wonderful thing of, look, I'm now living in a country where I, once again, don't speak the common language. But the difference is that I don't stand out as somebody who shouldn't.
Right.
And so it's a real impetus for me to learn it, but also to have the courage to go ahead and say it wrong anyway. And I think that's what stops a lot of people from, when they're expatriates in a new country, from getting better at speaking the language, because they're afraid they're going to look stupid. I assume I'm going to look like an idiot every time I open my mouth in a foreign language.
You must be used to it by now, surely.
Yeah. Adorable Alan.
But look,
Couldrey.
Here I am with my Thai homework, right?
Oh, you're learning to speak Thai.
That may be a bit of a bold statement. Right. I'm. When you say I'm learning, that would imply increasing the knowledge, right? I have lessons, is a better way to put it. And I quite enjoy the lessons, and I have which I do. I do them mainly online, but the teacher is here in Bangkok. And we were doing to be stuck, right? Yesterday we're doing to be stuck.
To be stuck in traffic type thing.
Mm-hmm. But it also means to be addicted. So the useful phrase is I'm learning. I was stuck at the airport for about 6 hours. By the age of 14, he was addicted to heroin.
Oh.
That seems specific.
And and it's the same word.
Same word. I'm addicted to coffee. He was addicted to video games.
I'm stuck in traffic.
Yeah, I'm tied up. And then things like I'm tied up with work, right?
Right.
Which would lend, if you were working on doing columns today, that would be right up your street, right? Because I'm tied up with work.
With a kind of a in the background there.
So, what I think comes from the article is, first of all, people's grown-up approaches to charity are interesting. It's a whole, and that's quite a grown-up area, quite a serious area, right? We're all sort of, aware, especially you and I and many of our friends and so on, of doing quite well in life, perhaps we'd like to do better. But anyway, we're doing quite well in life. And, there's a sort of moral obligation to be involved in charity. And occasionally...
Yes, I mean, no matter if you've got enough and you have a little more than enough.
Yeah.
Right.
I had a dear friend who always used to say, whenever this sort of thing came up, he used to say, I prefer to give directly. Meaning, when I'm asked for money in the street, you're allowed to say yes or no on a sort of yes or no basis.
Right.
Rather than the kind of pie chart approach that some people seem to take, when it's like, I've worked out how much of my...
Well, it seems to me that just over the last 20 years or so, it has been identified that an awful lot of those big charities, so much of it goes to infrastructure.
Yeah.
And that, if you do your homework and do your research, you can find charities where it does go more directly to the person who needs it.
I mean, and here in Thailand, you don't have to go very far, or indeed most countries in the world these days.
Right.
And the other part of it, of course, is this modern phenomenon of, I was in London a couple of years ago. I was stopped in the street not by someone selling the big issue, but by somebody promoting engagement with a charity for homeless people.
Right.
And, bright young guy, blue eyes, very friendly, very good at his job, engaged me in conversation. I signed up to something, which is nice because I'm, a nice person. Years later, I'm looking at my visa bill thinking, oh, I didn't know I was...
Still giving to that.
And that's fine. But it's like, that must be the operation. That must be the way they operate, right? I mean,
right. Well, that's the way so many of these things operate. And I feel like this is a good thing for businesses who do that rollover renewal subscription thing to do. Is I'm starting to get emails now that say, we just want to alert you that your subscription will be renewed on thus and such a date. Right. And if you would like to renew, then do nothing. But if you'd like to cancel your subscription, and I appreciate that.
Yes.
I think that's a good thing. So listen, we have kind of gone all over the place with this conversation. Alan Couldrey, it has been so much fun talking with you. And thanks I'm very impressed with your doing your homework on your Thai. And I'm going to get off this podcast and go do my practice Portuguese. And I will then bid you it's very simple, actually. I just have to say ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao. Kokumaka.
And listen, those of you at home, if you would like to get a hold of Alan Couldrey for creative direction and a few good puns, you can reach him at...
It's just alan.c@saboteur.studio.
Fabulous. Breathe all the time. Come up slowly. Hey, what if it's good?